let's get down to drawing lips. Okay, so anything on the human body, in fact, anything organic, and these reference pieces are from New Masters Academy, my good friends over there. Joshua had let me use these way back when I was doing my how-to book. I think he got me these. So anyway, I really appreciate that. So when we're drawing organic forms, we've got two problems, two challenges, two opportunities, depending on how you think about it. We're trying to get, let me make sure I'm on the screen, the structure, the architecture of life, and the gesture, the energy of life. And anything that is alive is energetic. In fact, in terms of quantum physics, everything's energetic. There's no structure at all, but we won't get into that because I don't know. I wouldn't know what I was talking about. So that might be a long, boring time. Structure and gesture, matter and energy, architecture and life. If we get the gesture, our art will come alive. And all that means, it's a simple idea. These things are simple ideas. Doesn't mean they're easy to accomplish because we've got to stack simple idea on simple idea. But if we can get a contour that flows, it's going to have this watery design. And if we can get the not just the contour, the little things, but the overall, the bigger structures to flow, then we're going to feel that life energy. And if we then draw the gesture using a very simple, again, simple is the key here. Complicated is no fun at all, believe me. Simple is the key. If we can, whenever we're drawing anything, say a head, if we draw the long axis of the skull, the long axis of the face, a little curved, now it's going to start to feel a little watery. And it's going to start to come a little alive. And that can be true on the lesser forms, like the eye socket. And so on. The more curve there is, the more life there is. So that's one thing. That'll give us more gesture. We want to, the longer the line goes, the longer the contour goes, the more likely we want it to be curved because that's going to make it come alive. But we still need the architecture. And there's all sorts of ways to approach that. But for today, we're only going to talk about overlaps. If I show that something is in front of something else, it starts to give the idea of depth. And we can push that in a way to make it more believable. But we'll just use, move that here a little bit. But we're just going to use the idea of overlap. So notice when I drew the eyelid, it was overlapped by the eye socket. And when I drew the eyeball, it was overlapped by the eyelid and the eyelashes. And that would be true for all of these forms. The wing of the nose overlaps the ball and septum of the nose, and the cheek overlaps the nose itself, and so on. So we're going to use overlaps. The jowl area overlaps the lips. Overlaps are going to be a big deal for us. Now, if we just look at a profile then, the danger here is that we draw a nose and lips. I'm going to make this silly. And mouth and chin. And there's no overlap there. Even a little bit of overlap, like the nostril and wing over the tip, or the jowl area over the mouth helps. And so what I want to look for on the lips here is some overlap, because that's going to add at least a little bit of structure, a little bit of real architecture, a little bit of depth to show it that much more real, ringing that much more true. So when I draw things, no matter how simply I draw them, I'm looking for, in some ways, as many overlaps as I can get. So here's going to be the nose. Here's going to be the upper lip right here, and the little jowl area right here. And then I'm going to look to see, is the upper lip overlapping the lower lip? Or is the lower lip overlapping the upper lip? I want one or the other. In this case, the lower lip is being overlapped by the upper lip, even as the upper lip is being overlapped by this jowl area. So overlaps begin to give us a sense of form, a hierarchy of structures, architecture, and space. And the more overlaps we do, and it can be overlaps in line, say the bottom of the plane of the face is called the digastric plane, overlapping maybe the throat a little bit, or the shadow of the digastric plane overlapping in front of the contour. Let me check, make sure you guys can still hear me. Thanks. That's a nice compliment. I like that. Alm said, I've got lovely granddad vibes. That's sweet. I'll take that, even though I'm not a granddad yet. But that's okay. And we can even do this with overlapping with tones. Notice the lower lip is now overlapping the chin, and the jowl area is overlapping both lips. And the nose is overlapping the upper lip, and so on. More overlaps you get within reason, the more reality we have. Okay? So that's one. And notice, let's go back here for a second. Notice whatever view you see of anything, you're only seeing half of it. And oftentimes less than half. And yet for them to feel your artwork to be real, as you draw the front, they have to feel there's a back. And on some level, you need to know what that back is doing. As I draw this ring on the front of the finger, I've got to draw it in such a way that it makes us feel like there's a trajectory that takes us all the way around the whole finger. Same with the belt, same with the necklace, and so on. So we're only ever getting at best, and oftentimes far less, at best half of the information. And yet we have to convince them there is a complete amount of information and it's real. And that's what the overlaps start to do. As you're only seeing partial reality, we're getting a sense of the whole reality. This is closer to you, this is a little farther, this is really far, and so on. So that's my performance art for the session. Hope you enjoyed it. So let's then take this a little farther. We're only seeing, to complete that point, we're only seeing the right side of the face. We're not seeing the left side of the face. And we've got to feel like there is a left side. The overlaps will do that. This doesn't. This is like a cutout piece of paper because we're not feeling the overlaps when I had drawn it without overlaps. So overlaps are good. That's a summation. I could have just saved just 10 minutes probably by saying that. Now, when we're dealing with things in, where do we want to go here? I guess we'll do this one. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. When we're drawing that set of lips, we've got to show the architecture, right? We've got to show that no matter what the view is, the nose juts out. And the upper lip pushes back strongly. And the lower lip pushes out strongly and then jumps back a little bit. And then maybe drops down and then it pushes out a little bit and then dramatically back for that underside. So we've got a lot of stair-stepping back and forth. And when we see it from a profile, any kind of profile, at least we have the silhouette and we can copy and track that silhouette. And then if we add our little overlaps, we're in pretty good shape, literally. But when we get inside, when the features get inside the contour, as the nose and the eyes and the lips are, we're just going to focus on the lips, now it gets a little harder because we don't have the silhouette to describe. And that's why when you look at primitive art, children or Egyptian art, what do? They'll have this, make it a pharaoh here. And then they'll draw the front of the shoulders and the front of the torso. And then when you get down to the feet, they'll turn the feet sideways. This way. They'll draw the most characteristic silhouette of each body part because they don't have the technology to show that overlapping space. They'll draw, even though this should be a side view with a side eye, should be doing that. Instead, they'll draw this eye like this. They'll draw a front view of the eye because that's more characteristic. So that's what little kids will do too. Doesn't mean it's lesser art. It's just a different way of seeing and a different way of translating reality. But if we want things to look more real, then we've got to give that sense of overlap and contour. If we want, see here, I don't want to muck up my space here. If we want to show structure, we want to show overlap. And that's true in line or in tone. And so on. And there's other things we could use, but overlap, big deal. Something that they didn't do here. They set a silhouette inside another silhouette, but they didn't create true overlaps very much. And then contour, because if we're going to make this feel like a form, a volume, a structure that has some kind of architecture, even if it's organic architecture, can't just be the overlaps. We actually have to in some way break the contour. Because notice that I just drew a shape here, but when I made it look more real using value and gradation, I'm showing you, teaching you how to break the contour. So in some way or another, through line or through tone, I've got to get you to not go just around the form, but break the contour so you go over the form. And I can do that with line or I can do it with tone. We're gonna do mainly with line today. So if we look at this mouth, and if we think of the mouth as having a barrel to it, a little bit of a bulge, the nose is in here, upper lip with whatever overlaps, lower lip with whatever underlap, chin. We want the teeth to push those lips out a little bit. So we have a little bit of a muzzle, not as big as a doggy, with the teeth and the nose push way forward on a dog. Looks like a pilot dog. I don't know how to draw dog eyes. We have a little bit of a muzzle too. That's why those lips push forward and we can see those even as we're wrapping behind. So feel the barrel here, and we won't get into all the subtleties of that. I've done that actually before. So for you Patreon folks, it's there, and we'll do it again at some point for those of you who are not. But what I want to do is feel the line of the mouth, the contour, going over the round barrel, the round ball, I should say, and we're a little bit underneath that ball. So when we're underneath the ball, we want to feel this kind of curvature. That quicker than anything else, in line or in tone, will show that we're underneath that. And the more curved it is, the more underneath it feels, because that's what we see in a cylinder. Underneath that cylinder curves this way. So when we want to be underneath something, we simply, remember simple, we want it simple. We simply want the detail that is at or near the center to be higher, and the detail that's at or near the sides to be lower. Higher, lower, and then we feel like we're underneath it. Higher in the center, lower on the sides. And the more high to low we create, the deeper the perspective. And then it would reverse the other way, low in the center, high on the sides. So I want to make sure I'm curving that. And then I can do it rounded, or I can do it chiseled. I can do it like a ball or a cylinder, or I can do it like a box or wedge. So here on the upper lip, we'll do it more like a box, because it is a little more boxy with that philtrum there. On the line of the lips, it's a little more rounded. Notice a nice overlap there. The lower lip is in front of the upper lip. The jowl area as we had here, slightly in front of the lip. the bottom of the lip, in fact, the whole structure of the lips over the barrel of the teeth that we can't see is in front of this jowl area, and so is the chin. Where'd my... If I want the structure to feel more rounded, I add more halftone coming out of that shadow. If I want it to be more of a sharp transition, I add little or no halftone. That'll make it a sharp stair step. This will be a rounded form. The stronger you separate those forms, the more dramatic it is. And if you're trying to be flattering, sometimes that's too much and you need to back off. And notice if I were to, this feels okay. You can do an overlap where the digastric plane overlaps the throat. That'll add structure. But also we can change the contour of the chin to get a little higher in the center and a little lower on the sides, like we did in the lower lip. We can do that in the chin. And notice this isn't actually quite as accurate as what I had before, but it's more evocative because the contour is reinforcing the underneathness. Like we might have if this bottom was more of a cylinder and less of a rounded egg for the chin. So I'm going to cheat on that a little bit. Don't have to, worked okay. But if I want to push that idea, I can make a more powerful statement. And it wouldn't matter if I'm doing this with dark lines or light tones or any combination of those things. So see how that works? Overlaps and contours. There's a lot of other tools we can use, but just those, just paying attention to those can be really powerful. Especially when we combine tone and line. We can get pretty strong statements there. Okay, so probably should stop there. But it's fun, isn't it? It's fun to do. So you can try those things. Try them at home. If you want to save on art supplies, try it at somebody else's home, although I wouldn't recommend it. And just see how that how that plays out. And just develop those. And you can do it. Notice that I did it with just eggs and cylinders, balls and boxes at first. So you can practice these ideas with really generic, simple forms rather than incredibly difficult organic forms, especially in the face. Super hard to do. So practicing with easier problems is not a bad way to go. So you set yourself up for a more likely success and not possibly a frustrating failure. All right, so I think we'll leave it there.